Hi, during the past few weeks during lockdown, I've managed to have some time to get my workshop more organised. I've done a full renovation where I completely empty the workshop, give it a lick of paint, and then really think about where I want to put certain things. This video is just an update of a full tour of my workshop, and as many of you may already know, I have a small workshop which is just a 3 meter by 3 meter workshop, but it suffices me. I've got everything I need from a chop saw to a table saw and a full workbench and a tool wall which I've just included recently. Come check out the rest of my video to give you a full tour. So on this side of the workshop I have my Mitre Station where I have 2 units either side full of storage. The one at the back is full of things I don't really use very often, certain power tools like my circular saw, my planers, but just some odds and sods that I don't really use very often. On this particular unit I've got lots of small blanks of oak, sapele and redwood and serious other hardwood blanks that I have down there, just because I keep the larger pieces out the front which I use very often, and I have a few smaller pieces which I do below. And the way it works is that I've got a sort of a roller blind system thought of just to cover up most of the rubbish. So the wood's at the bottom, and then on the top shelf I have my paints and my finishes. And I literally just use a roller to keep it nice and tidy, keep it out of the way, so out of sight, out of mind, I guess. I normally use this section for various projects I'm working on, just to kind of get them out of the way when I'm halfway through, or if I need certain things, and I just stop there. But the main thing for this wall is the wood rack, and also I keep some lumber timbers on the side, at the top, sorry, and my sliding mitre saw. I've had this for probably about 3 years now. I still haven't changed the blade. It's still the original Evolution blade. It works fantastic. Can't complain really. It does everything I needed to do. I've never been in a situation where it's not giving me what I need, so I'm really happy I got this, and I got this Mitre Station built on the side. And then from here we can move on to my workbench. So this is a new addition to my workshop. I had a smaller bench which was tucked away in the corner, but I've decided to move around and rejig things a little bit, just to make it a bit more practical. So I've got a longer bench, nice and flat this time, with an 18mm MDF and a few runners of a 4x2 timbers going all the way down to keep it nice and flat. I've just finished it off with a bit of 1x1 timber. I haven't applied any finish because it is a workbench. It probably doesn't need it, to be honest, but it's all a preference. It's going to make mess, it's going to get dirty. You can see I've got some paint marks already on there and so on. But for me, it's a great assembly table, but also a nice table to do good shots, and also to have enough space for certain projects which are quite big, and you need a work surface to be able to build those. And the other addition is I've got a small vise which I've added, and I've just covered the front just to kind of avoid any dust from my table saw coming in. But underneath I've just got my longer clamps and my Titan thickness planer, and also the shop vac which is hidden under there, and I'll show you that as we go around. So as you can see, underneath the bench I've got my thickness planer, my shop vac which is connected to my barrel on Cyclone, and I've also got some clamps, really long clamps, which I just keep on the side, which I don't really use very often, but it's just nice to have them out of the way. And as I mentioned, I've got some 4x2 timbers running through down to the workbench to give it a nice sturdy feel. It really helps with the flatness, and the space under here is very much utilised very well. The shop vac is not very used. Well, I don't take it out very often because I've got a Cyclone now, and this thickness is great. It does the job, but sometimes it's a bit of an effort to take out. So I only take it out now and again when I need to. Hence why it's under there at the moment. I'm going to create a sort of a rolling platform which I can just wheel it out instead of lifting it and breaking my back. So that's the workbench. Let's move on to the table saw. So in terms of the table saw I use an Evolution table saw. I believe it's the Rage 5S, something like that. I can't remember the exact spec. The reason I have this is it's got a nice large surface for the actual table. I like the sturdy fence, and not only that, we have a sliding mitre option, which I can use as a sliding fence, which is really practical and really useful at times. I have changed the blade on this. I've got the DeWalt blade on this at the moment. I find it cuts so much better than the actual Evolution blade, especially when you're doing rib cuts. I just found the teeth are too small in the Evolution, and it just wasn't giving me enough of a rib cut. You can see I've got my DSLR camera here at the moment, so I'm trying to upgrade my videography at the moment to something a bit of a higher quality, but that's a bit off topic. Another thing that I created recently is this sliding cross-cut sled. This has been so useful for projects like Kumiko, and also small little projects where you just need to make continuous cuts. It just makes it a lot more easy, a lot more practical. It's a lot more efficient, to be honest, and I don't know why I didn't create it any earlier. Even though I've got the Mitre Saw, this is a lot more efficient when it comes to certain cuts. So yeah, this is my table saw. Very happy with it. I've had it for about 2 years now. No issues whatsoever. The only thing I would say, it is very loud. And sometimes the table is, even though it's great to have a nice big surface, in a small workshop it's not ideal to have such a big surface which takes a whole lot of space. Hence why it sits in this corner. But if I'm cutting longer lengths, I normally wheel it out and put it in the doorway and use the doorway as a sort of extra room behind me to run the longer lengths. This does fold away, but I use it so often I don't fold away anymore. I used to, and I just got fed up of opening and closing it. So I leave it here in the corner, and so far it's been working well. And you could probably see when I did the workbench video, you can see there's a hole in that corner where the vacuum pipe comes through and it connects to the back of the table saw. Collection wise it's great, but it could be a lot better. But like I said, it's a budget saw, it does what it needs to do. If I was to change it, I'd probably go for a DeWalt, but that's my opinion. I need to test it out to see if that's great. Moving on, just some storage in terms of clamps and some tools. So let's get on with that. So one thing I hated when I had the old workshop in terms of organisation are the clamps. I always found them falling on the floor. I couldn't find the right ones, I couldn't find the right sizes. And this is perfect for me because they're out of the way, out of my feet in a sense. They can easily clamp, and all I've done is just got a piece of MDF. I've cut some notches into it where the actual clamps can go and hang in. So I just got normal F clamps which I use. Goes in the slot and it stays there perfectly. I've had no issues, nothing's fallen off so far, touch wood. But yeah, it serves me well. I'll probably will get more clamps, hence why I put it to the top, and I could just set another rack underneath. But for now it's what I have, and it's pretty much enough at the moment. But like I said, my longer clamps are on my workbench, and these are my go-to clamps which I use very often. On this side, I've just wanted to utilise the space in between the two windows. I always need a pen and paper in the workshop and I can never find one, so I brought a whiteboard. I know it's probably thinking, oh well, this looks like a little school now, but it's not. It's so practical. It's so ideal to have a whiteboard in the workshop, just to note some numbers down, some measurements, to hang your plans up, whatever you're working on. And for me, it's worked really well. And underneath that, I've just got a small little cubby that I use to hold my tapes, a few finishes and some sandpaper rolls. It's something I made some time back. It was slightly damaged, so I couldn't sell it. So I'm using it in the workshop just to hold a few items. You're probably thinking why I've blocked this side of the window. It's just that when I'm doing my filming, any sunlight that comes in is not ideal. So what I've created at the top here is just a makeshift sort of spotlight which helps with the lighting, and it works really well, to be honest. And finally we're going to move on to the main masterpiece of the workshop and what I've been working on for some time. I have to say, for a very long time I needed to get organised, and having a tool wall was the biggest thing for me. But in terms of how it was laid out before, I wasn't able to do that. So hence why I've removed everything in my workshop, just so I can have the space behind me to be able to have a tool wall. But the first things I've got are my bits, which are my go-to bits, which is wood bits, Forstner bits, and my countersink. On top of that, I've got my sanding discs, which I have in order in terms of grit size, and also the drill charger, which is just hung on there for now. It can be easily removed if I need to go to a job site or whatever. And on this side, I've got my hammers, my chisels, my planers, which are my go-to planers I use all the time. The record player and Stanley planers, which I've had, and they've been passed down from my dad. He's now retired and doesn't do much woodworking anymore, so I've kind of taken over from those. And on this side here where the shelves are, I've just got my go-to power tools, which is like the sanders, my routers, my cordless drill, and another router and a sanding belt. These are my go-to power tools I use all the time. The ones I don't use very often, they end up in this unit down here, and I take it out as and when I need to. But this is what I use pretty much in most of my projects, and it's so practical and it's so much more efficient to have this. The only thing I have at the bottom is just my sort of cubby holes where I have certain things. So I've got my pencils, my measuring tape and blades, wood glue, and a few markers. I've even got to the extent of using these glass jars to hold smaller things. So these have just got my razors and sharpeners. And in this one I've got various bits and smaller drill bits which always go missing. So I'm just trying to be as efficient and as organised as I can. And I've had this for about 2-3 weeks now, and I've done various projects in here. And I find that I spend less time in the workshop looking for things and trying to find things and make space. And I can just get straight into the workshop, get on with the project and get a lot done. And for me, that's great because I do this on the weekends and evenings. So to be more efficient and use the time well is exactly why I wanted to do this. And I'm very happy with it. Tell me what you think, comment below what you would change, what you'd add, what you like about it and what you don't like about it. And yeah, I'll come back to you and maybe you can give me suggestions on what I could do to add to make it a bit more, even more efficient than what it is now. So yeah, I hope you like it. I'm very chuffed that I did this, and I've had the time during isolation to kind of use my time efficiently, I guess, to get this more organised. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. And for those have been following me, thank you for subscribing, and I hope you like my woodworking videos, and I'll see you in the next one.